slides are hosted on a GitHub page so you can scan and then just follow along. But today's presentation is going to be mainly on Claude skills, or just skills in general now, as they've kind of blown up over the past few weeks, but have been around for a while. So recently, Context put out a benchmark report where they interviewed a lot of people in big tech and other technical industries. And a lot of companies are already at like 90% of them have AI adoption, but there's no real standardization. So while a lot of the techniques and stuff we use for building smaller products and stuff, when you got to larger and larger code bases, these tend to break. So when they were surveyed, we saw that there was like a lot more PRs coming through, but also a lot more bloat and issues that come along with these PRs. And this ends up really showing that if you have very good practices in place, you can amplify things a lot to get great results, but if you have bad practices in place, you'll have catastrophic results. And I'm sure we've all seen this, where you have some person that just hits accept all on cursor or Claude code, you end up with god-awful files, everything's breaking, and then you have to go in and fix whatever the hell they put in there. And it ends up taking you probably like 4 times as long as it should have than when you just went in. And about me, I've been doing AI engineering for around 3 years now, and I've been doing independent contract consulting for about a year. And in my past 30 days, 95% of my code has been all written by AI. Put about 100,000 lines into a lot of my client projects, and I burned through around $860 for token credits, and brought in around $23,500 revenue. And this is just to show that I'm not trying to just be like, let AI write all the code, but it's like once you set things in place, you can get a lot out, and not to like see the horror stories of a lot of people just going through and being like, here's a 5,000 line file, or here's something breaking, and after I ran Claude for around like an hour. So the question really is for 2026, it's like, cool, you're saying write all your code with AI, but how do we really capture the gains as if you're by yourself or as a technical team? And it's like, what are we optimizing towards? And then really, what should we focus on our efforts for 2026? And I would say it's building systems that you actually can build trust around, where you can hand off larger and larger tasks and know that they're actually going to get completed. And before we get to like exactly how that works, I just kind of want to bring it into like, a lot of times when you think about handing something off to an AI, it triggers this weird part of your mind where you're like, I can't trust that. But in reality, this is how engineering teams have really worked forever. When you work with a younger engineer or something, you come in and scope out the task, you hand it off to them, they implement it. You don't really have any control over the implementation, but then you give it with PR review, feedback, and you enter it in. But when you do this, there are guidelines and guardrails that you put in place when working with people. You don't just let the junior engineer do some massive change and then like not go through your commit rules, CI actions, any protocols you have. It's like, no shit, they're gonna destroy everything if you just don't put things in place, and if you have them read everything before, it works well. In the same way, this is where skills come in, is that you can then encode this information in a way that then every time the AI reads this, it can then operate in your code base as a way that you should want it to. And it really breaks down to then what is a skill, because it's a lot of things that come in the AI space, they come up, they blow up, and then it's like, really, what are we talking about? And skills are really simple. It's just an opinionated markdown format file, and you set it up in a way that uses something called progressive disclosure, where then the agent acquires context on demand through reading things, and you don't have to manually link files by itself, and you're starting to trust the agent more and more to pick up the context that you need. And it's now become the new standard. Anthropic put it out, but now a lot of the other agent tools, OpenCode, I think Gemini Code, all of them are now kind of adopting it as the main skill provider, just because it's pretty straightforward. So just kind of walk through like how it works is, first we just create a file with a little bit of details of the name and description. We give it some context around what the skill is. So for this, the reference file from Anthropic is using PDF processing, and you then say, here's more information that you want to read. So you look here, it's like, oh, I need to fill out a form. I can look at this more in-depth skill file specifically for that. You then have all of your things laid out in the directory. And then when the agent boots up, it sees an XML type tree of like, we have PDF processing or data analysis, so that when you go in and you ask for something like extract tables from the PDF, the agent will read its system prompt and be like, okay, I see I need to process a PDF, I will read the skill file. And then once it gets in there, it will see like, okay, cool, I now know what more about PDF processing, and then
you can go in there and see, it's like, okay, I have to extract tables, there's an advanced extraction method specifically for that. It goes in there and sees there's a specific script it needs to run for processing it that way. And what this ends up is that now you can trust every time that you have a PDF or something that in this nature, that the AI will actually do it in the way that you set out to do. And the question really then becomes down for your industry is like, what do you really need? Like, everyone's flows are different. And that was kind of a hard part about this presentation. I was like, I can go really in depth in my exact setup, but I'm an independent contractor. My flows are probably a lot different than like if you're a back-end dev, front-end, data engineer. And it's like every role has different problems, different skills that you want to apply. So like my skill directory, I spent like months building it out over now, and it's like 140 files long. I could probably spend hours talking about it. So, but I'm like, what can I actually show that's more like applicable so that when you guys leave here, you have a piece of information that actually can help you guys in your day-to-day. And I'm just kind of thinking of the process that I go through to actually build out a skill for this. And it's like, not that complex, but it's just figure out what you do a lot. So it's like, if you are constantly writing like migration scripts, doing AI or front-end debugging, whatever that may be, what you do repeatedly that you hate and just is very tedious. You figure that out. You then just like write it all down. You can use text-to-speech or something. You can ask AI to interview you to figure this out, and then you can turn it into a skill. And if you don't really know where to start with that, Anthropic has like a skill builder skill that literally you just drop it in there and it will give you a good layout. I don't exactly agree with exactly how they set it up, but it is a great starting place to actually get you going. And then it's just to iterate on, and once you are comfortable with it, you want to then share it out to your team, or you can try to then automate it completely. Because a big problem I've seen too is that a lot of people try to end up building out the skill completely and letting the AI run everything, and then you end up with slop, breaking things, and a lot of things that are not fun. And I just kind of want to go through an example that I had recently. I've been building a fintech advisor co-pilot sort of system, and a big issue with it is syncing the back end and the front end so that whenever the AI makes a change, the UI then is like in line with whatever the back end is. And so there is a lot of state sync with managing like the front end state. I'm not a front end engineer. I'm a full stack. I kind of understand front end enough to get it, but the flow is like add console logs, reload the page, screenshot, make a change, copy that out, add to SCAI, what's wrong. This is kind of gross, and there's a lot of ways to do this, but my best way is like, how can I package this into a workflow that then allows the AI to just be able to kind of do this flow and break it down. So I sat down and said, here's my whole flow, and then I ended up with like a skill using a MCP called browser MCP. It's pretty straightforward. It just lets you connect your Google Chrome tab to a agent, and it just is then you don't have to worry about like auth or anything when you're working with like Selenium or any of the other browser automation. And then set up an actual workflow file within this. So it's like, if we're gonna debug, here's what we do. We like set it up, confirm, do the loop and whatnot. XML is a little hard to read, so we have a much nicer visualization of that. So it's like, it will go in, ask me what I'm needing to do, confirm we're on the right page, start adding a bunch of debug logs, instrument changes, reload the page, screenshot, and then just ask me things along the way, fix the issue, and then remove all the markers in this. And what this really ends up getting us is that we can start having agents handle a lot of the tedious work for us by building these into workflows that then have like a feedback mechanism for us to come in and work with. And this then allows us to actually confirm and judge what the AI is doing and make sure we can keep it in line while it does more and more complex work. Because it's like, ideally, I'd let the agent do that all completely, but that would likely end up with a lot more issues than not. And like the key takeaways I'm like trying to get is like, don't let the bad examples blind you. Like, AI is going to be able to run for longer and longer time frames. It's like, I'm sure a lot of us saw over the weekend or last week, something called like Ralph Wiggum, where you can let Claude code run for hours on end. And that is essentially where things are gonna go, but right now, I would never let that touch any code base that someone's paid me to work on. Because it's like, it's gonna destroy things, and then I'm gonna get fired, and that's not a good time. And the next one is like, if you know what you're doing, like your skill is the most valuable thing. Like, if you know what you're doing, AI is a huge force multiplier. So I'm like, the big thing is to really like understand that you can get to 10x, but it's an incremental growth. 10% here, 5% here. You add this up week over week, and you will get to outputting huge amounts of effort. There are huge amounts of output with very little effort. And to kind of like solidify this a little more, it's like, if you are spending a lot of like tokens, let's just say 400 a month, and you have an engineering team of that's like 4,000 a month on token spend. If you just assume like a very conservative amount that people can get 20% more effective, and your like cost of an engineer to be around 10,000 a month, it's like, that's a 5x return on your money just right there. If you can understand how to kind of encode these systems and put it into a way where the AI can actually learn from your best engineers and the best practices that you or your team works with. And that's kind of just the mentality shift I want to like have you guys take away with is you can systemize your knowledge into a skill that the AI will work with. You'll have massive gains, and bit by bit we can then have agentic systems that can really work on our behalf, and we can step fully out of the loop. And if you want to connect, I'm on LinkedIn, and if we have time for questions, like I'd love to hear some.
I gotta read. I'm gonna just start off with the first question here. Curious, what's your most used skill day to day?
So I built out, in there's one I call agent session, which is like a spec plan and build flow where anyone who wants to really dig into this, I can show on my computer. It's like a little complex, but each thing has like an external state that it writes to, and it will interview me about what I need to do, kick off a bunch of research agents to then figure out the code base, and then implement that spec in a plan. It is similar to like how Taskmaster works, but I built it out myself, and then actually do the implementation. It saved me a lot of time where I could just sit there and like I have a microphone on my desk, and I would just sit there with Whisperflow or whichever speech to text provider you have, and just talk to it for like 30 minutes, and then I just let it run for an hour, and boom, QA it a little bit, and it works pretty well.
Can you share it online?
I can.
Nice.
It should be like, if you scan the slides, which I think we'll send out the link to, like it should be connected in that like GitHub repo, or like the GitHub organization.
Nice. Anyone else have questions?
Hi, I had a question. I know your presentation focused mainly on Claude, but what resources would you point to if you're trying to either evaluate what, I don't know, tool set, because there's so many, I feel like, tools for AI, both for yourself in terms of solving problems and also like moving an organization and making a pitch to, say, your boss to use certain tools. That's one. And then the second part, if there's if you had previously selected a tool, done a lot of skill building there, and then now they want to switch to another tool, do you feel like that's possible or realistic?
Yeah, so I use Claude Code largely because like they have a plan that's $200 a month that has essentially unlimited tokens, so it's a great deal. And while they're subsidizing your token spend, you should take advantage of it. All of the coding tools largely are about the same. I know people using Cursor, the Gemini coding agent, Claude Code, obviously, like they're all about the same, just as kind of what every organization wants to work with. Like I personally like Claude Code the most, just because the like form factor of it allows for it to be very extensible. But in terms of switching between various providers, like the skill definition format has been like standardized now in the sense that I believe like 5 or 6 of the main coding agent platforms have adopted it as just, it's opinionated markdown files. It's nothing too complex, and because a lot of people have already kind of jumped onto the wagon of Claude Code with it, everyone else is now falling in line. So you can easily switch between those tools, and also eventually you can just say, hey, I have all these skills in Claude Code format, can you change them to Cursor format or something, or there will be some package that does it, but I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure that exists, but I haven't looked because I haven't needed to use it yet.
Anyone else?
I had to make you walk all the way back. How are you solving for or thinking about like portability or reusability, being able to like package skills and using them across projects?
So I have like a designated a GitHub repository that I can then just clone into projects as I need. I've thought about like packaging it, my entire like skill setup as like a plugin and being able to use it. I've seen people do that because you're able to like select different types, or like each like subset of your plugin you can like set flags for when you do that. I haven't had the need to yet, just because it changes so rapidly at this point. I don't really need to do it yet, but
that is something I'm having to consider eventually, but I put off because it hasn't run into an issue. But I would just, I just set it up as a separate GitHub repo. That you can either copy and paste out or just kind of set up as like a sub module within a repo and just roll it out.
You mentioned verbal prompting a little bit of talking into a whisper flow. What are kind of the pros and cons to you between saying a prompt versus like typing it out on the keyboard?
My biggest thing is that once you start typing, you kind of like break the flow of working with the AI. And like, I will also have like 4 to 5 instances running of like working on different parts of the repo or like multiple repos at once, depending on like, if I run into an issue with something that for the skill I'm working on, I'll go into my like skills repository and just kick something off real quick and just let it run and it updates like that. It just allows for faster switching, and like as the things get better, it's like you can get in there and type if you need to, but it's becoming less and less important. I just get a lot more like words per minute out to it.
Yeah, and I guess as a quick follow-up to that, when you have 4 or 5 running, how are you managing them? Are you having them like a Kanban board style? Are you going through different terminals, or how are you kind of overseeing the team as it's?
Yeah, but right now it's not as optimal as it should be. I just have like each like VS Code set up with like multiple terminals in that for that. I've like looked into using like Work or something to have a lot of different terminals, but I still like to look at the code sometimes, which, you know, just have it, I got a break, I guess, to really get to the next level, but that's kind of where I'm at. It's a lot to manage sometimes, and I'm like, I need to figure out something better, but the past couple of weeks have not allowed for the extra time to like really change my own skills.
This is going to be our last question.
So as far as managing multiple instances of Claude, I would suggest you look into work trees, Git work trees. It's amazing, it's going to change your life basically. And what it allows you to do is to work within a single repo, as opposed to having to switch between. But within that repo, you basically clone the repo into multiple other work trees basically, so look into it. The other question I wanted to ask is, not a question I wanted to ask. So skills, I think they came out with an update. I think it was probably yesterday or so, early out of this morning. And you can now use / commands. And the reason I say that is because you could ask Claude to do something, and Claude might sometimes not use a particular skill unless you explicitly say use this skill. So I think with the / command, it's kind of easier for it to just like pull up the skill and then send it to carry out whatever it is you want to do. So
Yeah, that is like the super fun and annoying part of working in AI is you have to stay up to date as everything changes, and then like they add a new complex feature and it's like, cool, how do I work this in? But yeah, as you said, work trees are amazing. I don't use them a huge amount just because a lot of the repos I have, it can be like a headache to do that, and I really try to make sure I don't have like conflicting code, but they're huge if you are like working on like 4 features at once and they have any overlapping files. It's like a very important thing to work with. But cool.
Well, one more round of applause for 4, please.